the dust on the war between India and Pakistan is settling, and now the pieces are falling in place. The friends and foes of India are becoming clearer. Turkey and Azerbaijan are standing out as two countries that have openly sided with Pakistan against India. And this sentiment is now sweeping across the public, who want to teach Turkey a lesson. Indian tourists are on a boycott Turkey spree. Indian travel companies are reporting anywhere between a 25% to 50% cancellation or drops simply in Indians who are planning to travel to Turkey for the summer vacation. Is this a fleeting threat like we saw with Maldives last year, where there was boycott Maldives? It was a huge trend. There was outrage across the country. It lasted for a few weeks. And now tourist arrivals from India into Maldives are pretty much at levels as it used to be. But the question with Turkey is, Turkey has consistently taken Pakistan's position, first in the grouping of Organization of Islamic Countries, the OIC, or even otherwise. In this instance, there are very real concerns that Turkey sent drones just before the flare-up between India and Pakistan. There's evidence of Turkish drones, the Bayraktars, being used by Pakistan to target various Indian cities. So the question is, will this boycott Turkey trend on social media actually end up hurting the Turkish economy, or are Indian tourists simply a drop in the ocean compared to the large number of global tourists who visit Turkey? But first, let's talk about this business of calls for boycotting travel to Turkey and to Azerbaijan by Indian tourists. Now, this comes after both of these countries openly supported Pakistan in the ongoing hostilities between India and Pakistan. As a result, many Indian travelers are cancelling their trips, and that is leading to a significant shortage or a drop in bookings to go to Turkey. Ixigo, which is one of India's foremost travel agents, travel apps, they have said that when it comes to Bharat, we don't think twice. Ease My Trip, the second biggest travel app in the country, says, and I quote, "We strongly recommend visiting only if absolutely necessary." Cox & Kings, which is again a big travel agency, sometimes a pause becomes a necessity. Travel Mint has decided to support the call for boycotting Turkey and Azerbaijan. Go Homestays has announced that they have officially ended their partnership with Turkish Airlines. Goa Villas will not offer any accommodation or services to Turkish citizens who may be planning to visit Goa. Pick Your Trail has also echoed that when national interest is at stake, then we stand with India. Now, here's the thing. There is no formal ban from the government of India or even a travel advisory from the Ministry of Civil Aviation for Indians against them traveling to Turkey or to Azerbaijan. But here is what is at stake if both countries have to bear the brunt of Indian tourists in a large scale not showing up in either of these two countries. In Turkey, in the year 2024, there was a big jump. 3.3 lakh Indian tourists visited Turkey in 2024. That was a 20% increase from the previous year. So one extra tourist for every 5 ended up going to Turkey last year. By industry estimates, about $500 million in revenue are at stake for Turkey just from Indian tourists. Azerbaijan saw about a little under 2.5 lakh Indian tourists in 2024. That again was a whopping 100% increase from the previous year. By industry standards, $350 million in revenue is at stake if this tourism trend continues in the country of Azerbaijan.
अज़रबैजान और तुर्की ने टेररिज्म की बहुत हेल्प करी है, उनको ड्रोन्स और असला दिया है। तो हम अपील करते हैं, जो हम लाखों लोग जाते हैं इन दोनों देशों में, तो हमें उम्मीद है कि इसको हम बाइकआउट करेंगे।
जो भी टर्की से इंपोर्ट आ रहा है, वो जब तक टर्की पाकिस्तान का सपोर्ट कर रहा है, तब तक हम उसको टर्की से जो आने वाले माल को हम स्वेच्छा से हम इंपोर्ट नहीं करेंगे, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान जो हमारा दुश्मन कंट्री है, उसका पूरी दुनिया में किसी ने सपोर्ट नहीं किया पाकिस्तान का, और टर्की खुलकर टर्की का सपोर्ट कर रहा, पाकिस्तान का सपोर्ट कर रहा है।
The most of the people immediately voluntarily said, let the money go, but nation is first. So that's why we decided, okay, come on, we'll cancel it, whether we get the refund or not refund. Our life is also important. Plus, why we should support now, henceforward, no tourism will take place in Turkey and Azerbaijan.
So, Turkey's stand has been especially eye-opening because supplying arms to a country is one thing. Turkey, in fact, even openly batted for Pakistan during the recent conflict. While India did Operation Dost back in 2023 when Turkey faced a massive earthquake, Pakistan used Turkish drones to attack India, including the TB2s, the Bayraktars. While India set up a field hospital for Turkey, Turkey docked its naval warship, a corvette, in the Karachi port to support Pakistan. While India sent medical teams and essential supplies, equipment, etc. to Turkey in the aftermath of the earthquake, Turkey called for action against India's terror provocation. In fact, it was one of the fundamental provocateurs behind the OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, statement that came out condemning India's actions against Pakistan. Now, the question is, will this actually impact bilateral relations between India and Turkey? India's economic engagement with Turkey has acquired a new momentum in recent years. There's a considerable increase in trade. It stood at a little over $10,000 million, about $10 billion as of 23-24. As per the Central Bank of Turkey's data, Indian companies have invested about $120 million in Turkey, in Turkish businesses, in Turkish investments. Turkish investments into India are a little higher than that, at $210 million, as per the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade here in India. There are approximately 3,000 Indian nationals who are residing in Turkey. Most of them happen to be in Istanbul. India helped Turkey in times of crisis. Like I said, Operation Dost was launched in 2023 to provide urgent relief to Turkey in the wake of devastating earthquakes in the country's southern provinces. 3 NDRF teams and a 99-member medical team were deployed in Turkey. Over 250 trained Indian personnel, along with specialized equipment, vehicles, and relief material, actively worked in search and rescue operations. Operation Dost was among the earliest foreign helps that arrived in Turkey. India also sent medical equipment and relief material, about 8.5 tons worth of equipment and relief, to Turkey in the aftermath of the earthquake. All right, so a lot of travel portals and companies and apps are also saying that they will not allow for bookings to go through to Turkey. One of them is one of India's largest, Ease My Trip. Prashant Pitti is a co-founder of Ease My Trip, the travel app. Thanks very much, Prashant, for speaking with us. Why did your company decide not to allow bookings for Turkey? I believe it's a very popular destination for Indians. Last year, more than 3 lakh Indians visited Turkey. Why did you take this considered decision, and how many cancellations are you seeing since you took this decision?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Zaka. Zaka, you should not see this as an isolated moment of Ease My Trip. We have always been nation first. If you would remember last time India and Maldives had a trip, we were the first and the only OTA which actually boycotted Maldives, and we cancelled all the flights, all the hotels and the packages of Maldives, and gave full refund to the customers for about 9 months' time. Backwards to apologize to India, ran the campaign, Welcome India. Their tourism minister came to our office, Ease My Trip's office, and our external minister went to Maldives. Then only we resumed our flights 9 months later. And during these 9 months, there were 0 flights, 0 packages which were booked on Ease My Trip, while all our competitors were still selling Maldives packages. So this is not an isolated moment. Ease My Trip stands with India and will continue to stand with India. Now, very recently, when we can see that there's a war-like situation between India and Pakistan, countries like Turkey and Azerbaijan have chosen to stand on the wrong side of the history. And when I say wrong side of the history, it is very, very evident. Pakistan is caught with its pants down. At the funeral of UN designated terrorists, we are seeing army personnel standing over there, shoulders to shoulders with them. What more proof does the world need to call Pakistan a rogue nation? And yet, you are choosing to stand by with Pakistan is very, very careless, according to us, on their behalf. Now, given that, as the second largest travel portal in the country, we decided it is our responsibility to issue travel advisory to people not to travel to Turkey and Azerbaijan. This time, we did not cancel the flights. We issued travel advisory because Turkey is a major layover hub. Okay. People just go to Turkey to take another flight to go to Europe or US. So we could not differentiate, which is why we have put the advisory. We were the first ones to put the advisory, and we are glad that on the basis of our efforts, other OTAs have taken the same call. And Right now, you're seeing boycott Turkey and boycott Azerbaijan trending on the social media.
So
we believe,
how many cancellation requests? Do you have a number on, how much, as a result of this, the hit to the bottom line has been as a consequence of this?
see, the real hit is going to take time, but so far we are seeing 22% tickets to Turkey and 30% tickets to Azerbaijan being already cancelled by the customers.
Okay.
Since we have put the advisory, these cancellations have come in, and since this is only 6 days old, we believe this number is only going to go up. In cumulative sense, almost about 5 lakh passengers have traveled to Turkey and Azerbaijan from India last year. Even if we take modest 1 lakh rupees spent in the entire itinerary per tourist, we are talking about 5,000 crore as a total amount, which was spent on either of these two countries. And unlike Maldives, which changed its stance very, very, very quickly, I believe that Turkey and Azerbaijan will have difficulty changing their stance because it is stemming from their ideology, from being an Islamic nation, from giving them trades and ammunition. We believe that this standoff between India and Turkey and Azerbaijan is going to continue for a longer period of time, which is why this 5,000 crore multiplied over the period of time will surely make them feel the heat. And in fact, the heat is already felt. Only yesterday, there was a clarification which came from Turkey's tourism department to encourage people from India to continue coming over there. So, which is something which they are realizing. And I believe that this could only be the beginning for the country. See, it's not just the tourism, which is the trade between India and Turkey and India and Azerbaijan. There's so many other industries where import and export is happening. Using your medium, I would like for other entrepreneurs to consider not working with these countries which are adversaries to our country.
We're already hearing from, marble importers and Apple importers, etc., who don't want to take in Turkish goods. But one final word. You did mention earlier that, this is an advisory and you can't stop people from using Turkey as a layover. Turkey, I believe, is a very, very popular layover. Istanbul is a popular layover to travel to Europe or to travel to the US. What would your word be to those folks? Because I believe those tickets are also quite cheap compared to other European carriers or American carriers.
See, basically, if someone is affording to travel international, they can afford to spend 5% more in the name of the country. And especially knowing that the monies which we are giving to them will come back and haunt us in the format of drone is something which any person who respects our nation, stands with the nation, should be able to take a call. If it's only 5% more inconvenience, let me put it this way, it's worth taking that inconvenience, because if, at the end of the day, it is coming back to us, to our kids, in the format of future of better India.
All right, Prashant Piti, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Co-founder of Ease My Trip, one of the portals now that has come out and said that they are advising their clients and their patrons not to travel to Turkey or to Azerbaijan.